Have you ever felt so small that you wish the ground would just swallow you whole? I'm talking about that soul-crushing moment when everyone's eyes are on you, judging, whispering, making you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. 3 years ago, I experienced the worst professional humiliation of my life. It happened in front of 47 colleagues, our CEO, and the board of directors. I was so devastated that I couldn't eat for days, couldn't sleep, couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It gives you a solid foundation to build your comeback. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly how I turned my greatest failure into my most powerful weapon. Stay with me, because what happened next will change how you see setbacks forever. It was supposed to be my moment. 6 months of preparation, countless sleepless nights, and what I thought was the perfect presentation that would finally get me that promotion I'd been chasing for 2 years. The conference room was packed, the projector was ready, and I felt confident. But confidence, I learned, can be a dangerous thing when it's built on shaky ground. The moment I clicked to my first slide, everything went wrong. Not just wrong, catastrophically, career-endingly wrong. The data I'd spent weeks analyzing? Completely incorrect. The solution I'd proposed? Already tried and failed spectacularly at our competitor. But the worst part wasn't the technical failure. It was watching my colleagues' faces change from expectation to confusion, then to something that looked almost like pity. My manager's expression told me everything I needed to know before she even opened her mouth. The silence in that room was deafening. 47 people staring at me like I just confessed to a crime. I tried to salvage it, stumbling through explanations that only made things worse. Each word felt like digging my grave deeper. Then came the questions, sharp, pointed, designed to expose just how unprepared I really was. I watched my credibility evaporate in real time. By the time the meeting ended, I knew my career at that company was over. The walk back to my desk felt like a funeral march. Colleagues who used to greet me warmly now avoided eye contact. The whispers followed me everywhere. I cleaned out my desk that afternoon, not because I was fired, but because I couldn't bear to face another day of that humiliation. I thought my professional life was over. I was wrong, but I wouldn't realize that for months. The aftermath was brutal. Word spread fast in our industry, it always does. Job interviews became interrogations about that presentation. Rejection emails piled up like snow in winter. My savings dwindled as months passed without income. I started questioning everything about myself. Maybe I wasn't cut out for this field. Maybe I should give up and find something completely different. The worst part was how it affected my relationships. Friends didn't know what to say, family members offered well-meaning but hollow encouragement, and dating became impossible when the first question was always, "What do you do?" I felt like a fraud, a failure, someone who'd fooled everyone including myself into thinking I was competent. But sometimes our lowest moments prepare us for our highest achievements. I just didn't know it yet. The universe was about to teach me a lesson I never saw coming. 6 months into my unemployment, something shifted. I was scrolling through social media, seeing former colleagues getting promoted, landing new jobs, living the life I thought I'd lost forever. Instead of the usual pang of jealousy, I felt something different, determination. That night, I made a decision that changed everything. I wasn't going to run from my failure. I was going to study it, dissect it, and learn from it until I understood every single thing that went wrong. I started treating my career like a science experiment, and my humiliation became my greatest teacher. I enrolled in courses I'd always put off, reached out to mentors I'd been too proud to contact, and began building something I'd never had before, genuine expertise, not just surface-level knowledge. What I discovered about myself in those months of rebuilding would become the foundation of everything that came next. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While researching my failed presentation, I stumbled upon a pattern that no one in my industry had noticed. The very mistake that had humiliated me, the incorrect data interpretation, revealed a gap in how we were all thinking about the problem. Instead of just fixing my error, I dove deeper. What if the conventional wisdom was wrong? What if my mistake had actually exposed a fundamental flaw in our entire approach? I spent 3 months developing a new framework, testing it, refining it. The more I worked, the more excited I became. This wasn't just about redemption anymore, this was about revolution. I had discovered something that could change everything. But I needed to prove it, and I knew exactly where to start. The same conference that had witnessed my downfall was accepting applications for next year's keynote speakers. Applying to speak at that conference took every ounce of courage I had left. The irony wasn't lost on me, returning to the scene of my greatest failure to present what I hoped would be my greatest success. The selection committee probably thought I was delusional. Who was I to think I deserved a platform after such a spectacular failure? But my application was different this time. It wasn't built on confidence or assumptions. It was built on solid research, validated results, and most importantly, the humility that only comes from having fallen flat on your face. When they accepted my proposal, I felt a mixture of terror and excitement I'd never experienced before. I had 8 months to prepare, and this time, I wasn't taking any chances. Every slide, every data point, every transition was checked, double-checked, and verified by 3 independent sources. The day of the conference arrived faster than I expected. Walking into that same building where I'd been humiliated 3 years earlier felt surreal. Some faces in the audience were familiar, former colleagues who'd witnessed my downfall, industry leaders who'd probably heard the stories. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't the overconfident employee hoping for a promotion. I was someone who'd been broken, rebuilt myself from scratch, and discovered something genuinely valuable in the process. As I stepped onto that stage, I felt a calmness I'd never experienced before. Not the false confidence of my earlier attempt, but the quiet certainty that comes from knowing you've done the work. The presentation I was about to give would either vindicate my years of struggle or confirm that I truly didn't belong in this industry. There was only one way to find out. What happened next exceeded my wildest dreams. The presentation didn't just go well, it was transformative. The audience was captivated from the first slide. The framework I'd developed was already being implemented by 3 companies in beta testing, with results that spoke for themselves. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes of applause for someone who'd been laughed out of this very room 3 years earlier. But the real validation came afterward. The CEO who'd witnessed my original failure approached me with an offer I never saw coming. Not just a job, a position heading up a new division based entirely on my research. Former colleagues who'd avoided me were suddenly eager to reconnect. Job offers started pouring in from companies across the industry. In the span of 45 minutes, I went from industry pariah to sought-after expert. The humiliation that I thought would define my career had actually prepared me for this moment. Today, I lead a team of 37 people working on innovations that are reshaping our entire industry. The framework I developed during my lowest point has been adopted by over 200 companies worldwide. I've been featured on the cover of 3 industry magazines, and my TED Talk has been viewed over 2 million times. But here's what I want you to understand. None of this would have happened without that humiliating failure. That moment of crushing defeat forced me to rebuild myself from the ground up, to question everything I thought I knew, and to develop real expertise instead of just surface-level confidence. Your failures aren't roadblocks, they're redirections. They're preparing you for something bigger than you can imagine. So if you're facing your own moment of humiliation right now, remember this story. Your comeback is already in progress, you just might not see it yet. The only question is, are you ready to turn your greatest failure into your most powerful weapon? Life lessons from the ultimate comeback story. The story you just heard isn't just about one person's professional journey. It's a mirror reflecting the struggles we all face in our daily lives. Think about your own moments of failure. Maybe it was bombing a job interview, failing an important exam, or having a business idea rejected by everyone you trusted. In those moments, we feel exactly like our protagonist felt, small, defeated, questioning our worth. But here's the profound truth hidden in plain sight. Every person who has achieved something meaningful has a humiliation story. The difference isn't that successful people don't fail. It's that they treat failure as tuition paid to the university of life. When your teenager fails their driving test, when your presentation at work falls flat, or when your relationship ends badly, remember that these aren't endings. They're expensive lessons disguised as setbacks. The 6 months of unemployment and rejection our storyteller faced mirror what many of us experience in different forms. Maybe you're scrolling through social media right now, watching former classmates get married, buy houses, or land dream jobs while you're still figuring things out. That comparison trap is real, and it's brutal. But what the story teaches us is that comparison is the thief of transformation. While you're busy envying others' highlight reels, you're missing the opportunity to write your own comeback story. Every day you spend rebuilding yourself, whether you're learning a new skill, working on your mental health, or simply getting up and trying again, you're laying the foundation for something bigger. The person who lost their job and spent months in bed feeling sorry for themselves would never have discovered that revolutionary framework. Sometimes we need to be broken before we can become unbreakable. The breakthrough moment in our story came from embracing the very mistake that caused the humiliation. This is perhaps the most powerful lesson for our everyday struggles. We spend so much energy trying to hide our failures, to pretend they never happened, to move on and forget. But what if we did the opposite? What if that failed relationship taught you exactly what kind of partner you need? What if that business that went bankrupt revealed the exact market gap you should pursue next? What if getting fired forced you to discover your true calling? The Japanese have a beautiful concept called kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, making it more beautiful than it was originally. Your failures aren't flaws to hide. They're the golden veins that make your story unique and valuable. The scar tissue that forms after we heal is always stronger than the original skin. The transformation phase reveals something crucial about human potential that we often forget in our instant gratification world. Real change doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the quiet moments when no one is watching. While everyone else was moving forward with their careers, our protagonist was doing the unglamorous work of learning, researching, and building genuine expertise. This mirrors every significant change in our lives. The person who loses 50 pounds doesn't just wake up thin. They make 1,000 small choices, day after day, meal after meal. The entrepreneur who builds $1 million company doesn't just have one great idea. They iterate, fail, learn, and persist through years of uncertainty. The marriage that lasts 50 years isn't built on one moment of love. It's constructed through daily acts of choosing each other, especially when it's hard. Excellence isn't an accident. It's a habit forged in the furnace of persistent effort. The final triumph in our story, returning to the same stage where the humiliation occurred, represents the ultimate act of courage that we all need in our lives. How many of us avoid the places, people, or situations where we've been hurt? We change gyms after an embarrassing workout, avoid certain restaurants after bad breakups, or refuse to try again after failing publicly. But growth requires us to face our dragons in their own dens. When you walk back into that classroom where you once felt stupid, when you start dating again after your heart was shattered, when you launch another business after the last one failed, that's when you discover who you really are. The stage that once represented your worst moment becomes the platform for your greatest victory. Every person who has ever achieved something meaningful has had to return to their scene of failure and transform it into their scene of triumph. Your comeback isn't just possible, it's inevitable if you're willing to do the work. If you've made it this far, you're not just a viewer, you're someone who believes in the power of transformation, and that tells me everything I need to know about your character. You're the type of person who doesn't give up when things get tough, who looks for lessons in every setback, and who understands that your greatest failures might just be preparing you for your greatest successes. Here's what I want you to do right now. Think about your own humiliation story. What's the failure you're running from? What's the mistake you're trying to forget? What if that very experience contains the seeds of your breakthrough? Your story matters, and someone out there needs to hear it. If this video resonated with you, if it gave you hope or changed your perspective even slightly, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. That person who's going through their own dark night of the soul, who thinks their best days are behind them. Your share might be the catalyst that transforms their life. Drop a comment below and tell me about your comeback story. What failure taught you the most? What setback are you currently transforming into a setup for success? I read every single comment, and your story might just inspire the next video. Remember, your greatest comeback is always one decision away. The question isn't whether you'll face failure, it's how you'll respond when you do. Until next time, keep building your comeback story. I'll see you in the next video.